Tonight on The Hub, NASCAR goes west, but beware of speeding on the strip. Jeff Hammond and Casey Mears join us as we break down pit road. And we're catching a ride with the man who can make just about anyone laugh.
I don't use the word invigorating ever, so I feel awesome. Let's use awesome.
All right. But first, we're at Richard Childress Racing, getting to the bottom of the battery. Crew Chief Slugger Labby and Luke Lambert give us the lowdown on the low voltage from Atlanta. And we roll the dice as we head to Sin City, our odds man Todd Furman's backyard. Hear what the big boys in Vegas have to say when the Hub rolls. Welcome into NASCAR Race Hub, presented by Polaris. I'm John Roberts, alongside of driver Casey Mears and crew chief Jeff Hammond. And guys, let's face it, who doesn't love a trip to Vegas?
Viva Las Vegas.
That's why they wrote the song.
It's a lot of fun, but you got to realize something. In case you understand this, we gamble every Sunday, so why not go to basically the place where it's legal to do it?
I hear you, and I always look at the West Coast as kind of an opportunity for a little bit of a vacation, if you can fit it in. If you can fit it in.
The drivers
Maybe
always look for vacation.
Yeah, Hammond's going to work on his tan a little bit, I think. There. Now to our daily fuel. Las Vegas Motor Speedway announced yesterday that they will host a second race date next year. The date has yet to be determined, but will be in the fall of 2018 while continuing the customary March weekend. Each Las Vegas weekend in 2018 will be a triple header with the Monster Energy Cup Series, Xfinity, and Truck Series on track. The additional Cup and Truck races were taken from New Hampshire Motor Speedway, while the Xfinity race was taken from Kentucky. And the hammer was dropped on the team number 47 after post-race inspection at Atlanta found 3 missing lug nuts. A.J. Allmendinger will be without crew chief Randall Burnett for the next 3 NASCAR Cup Series points events. In addition, Burnett has been fined $65,000 by NASCAR, and A.J. loses 35 driver points. So, guys, here we are once again, just a couple of weeks into the season. We're talking about lug nuts again, but, Jeff, the penalties are real and they're severe.
Yeah, and NASCAR has stated this is what we're going to do, guys. You've got to be careful not to be caught basically doing this. And unfortunately, this is one of those penalties. I didn't think we'd ever see one this big. I figured maybe 1 being loose, maybe 2, but 3. I mean, somebody needs to do something about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one to swallow. I mean, this is a massive penalty. And what makes it so difficult is obviously the crew chief has a huge part in organizing what the teams do. And they can say, hey, boys, make sure you get 5 tight on that last stop. But if they don't, the crew chief, the driver, and the team all severely suffer from this penalty. And I understand why they're doing it because of what can happen on the backside. But, man, it's just pretty harsh.
So, Jeff, out of the 3 things that do happen there, of course there's money, of course there's points, but also the suspension of the crew chief is what you commented earlier today to us that really could be the severe part.
That, to me, is what I'm really most concerned about, because you're trying to get everything kind of going in the first part of the year. We got a new aero package. You've done all this work during the offseason, and all of a sudden you're going on the West Coast swing, those 3 races, and your crew chief is back on the East Coast. Yeah. That's going to be very, very tough as far as AJ's concerned. I guess Ernie Cope or somebody's got to step up and take the reins.
And Casey, of course, as we look forward to this second race for Vegas, the fans out there got to be really excited about this. Kind of had a feeling this was coming, but now it's here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's huge. Like we said, who doesn't mind going to Vegas to begin with? But, you know, these guys have worked really hard at doing a great job there at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. The fans are very engaged with what's going on. The way that they've done the garage, you know, the drivers are able to interact with the fans. And like I said, we get to enjoy Vegas as well. So it's a lot of fun. It's going to be cool to see, you know, how everybody responds to it. Yeah,
and when you talk about responding, I mean, I'm sorry for the folks at Loudon right now. They're losing a date up there because they're great race fans. But at the same time, to your point, I know this has been a dream of Bruton Smith, and I know that Marcus and he have been working very hard, very diligently to try to figure out how to get a second date for Vegas. Because, you know, you think about it, this is a big town with a lot of big things happening. Now they got the second event, including the championship dinner and everything. It really makes, I mean, Vegas a huge part of the NASCAR circuit.
Yeah, and SMI, Speedway Motorsports Incorporated, they said they're going to do everything they can to make sure that the race fans in Loudon and Kentucky are still, you know, they still see a great show and they still promote motorsports in that area.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a big push. They're gonna make sure they can do all they can for those single shows that they do have, and do the best job they can with it. And I echo what you said. The guys up at Loudon are just awesome. The intensity of the fan up there is really amazing.
Yeah, and they're still going to have a race. They're still going to have a date.
That's right.
Now, drivers used to love a trip out west because they could have a bit of anonymity around race cities, but those days are over. NASCAR is as big in the West as anywhere. It's just a long haul for the teams to get the parts and pieces of the sport out in time as NASCAR goes west. With 2 weeks of the NASCAR season already behind us, we now look ahead to the challenging logistics as NASCAR goes west. We start at the home base for most of NASCAR's Cup teams, Concord, North Carolina. The first stop on the West Coast Tour is the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. That means Cup teams will load their haulers and head 2,236 miles west. NASCAR's best then battle for 267 laps around the mile-and-a-half racetrack for a total of 401 miles. From there, it's just a short 300 miles south to the Phoenix Raceway for 312 laps of hard racing around the short 1 mile oval. The final stop on the tour is Fontana, California, just east of Los Angeles. The teams travel further west out of Phoenix for 321 miles, arriving at Auto Club Speedway in time for the drivers to log 400 miles on this big, fast 2 mile oval. After the winner sprays champagne in California's Victory Lane, it's 2,440 miles back to North Carolina. That's a total of 5,297 miles covered, plus another 1,113 miles on the track. But it's all worth it in the end because the world's best drivers will compete on the left coast for 3 straight weekends when NASCAR goes west. And also, those NASCAR teams, they know logistics. They know how to get that done. They're getting good at it over the years. But, Casey, you referred to vacation and the West Coast and all that. Well, these guys are working. I just wondered how that works for the driver and the crew chief.
Hey, sometimes the sponsors and everybody realize that there's some downtime and you might be out there, so they keep you busy. But it is kind of an opportunity to get out, and get away a little bit. I mean, honestly, there isn't that many off weekends, right? So when there is time or you are somewhere, you try to take advantage of that. And, Vegas, California, Phoenix, those aren't bad places to sort through.
No, they're not bad places for you, but you got to realize this is really where we're going to test the teams and find out whether or not how their preparation during the offseason went, getting their cars lined up, and when they got ready to leave to come to, let's say, to Las Vegas, are the Phoenix cars ready to go? Because think about it. You see all of this stuff that's got to be loaded up on these transporters to be taken out to the West Coast swing. Well, tomorrow, for example, on Friday, they will be sending another round of transporters bringing backup cars. I mean, like RCR, they got 3 teams. They got 6 cars leaving Welcome, going to the West Coast, for this first, for the next race, which will be Phoenix. So, and it repeats itself going into California. A lot of work, a lot of, as you say, logistics and being prepared.
And not cheap either.
No.
I wouldn't think it's expensive to get everybody out there. And, Casey, your whole team has to have their act together to go across the country and succeed.
They really do. I mean, it's a complete logistical nightmare to put, like Jeff was saying, the whole organization of this whole thing is not easy. And at the end of the day, is a lot of wear and tear on these guys. So after this 3-week swing, you're going to see a lot of guys coming back to North Carolina pretty tired. But the people that are the most prepared have their stuff done in advance. Some of the smaller teams are leaning on some of the big teams to get their stuff out there, piggyback rides, do that type of thing. So there's varying, difficulties and depending on what your level is on your team to do this.
And what he's talking about as far as the swing is concerned, this is where the new system, this new stage points will really rear, I think, its ugly head to a certain degree. Because if you're prepared and you can run up front in that top 10 and score some points, you may wind up kind of pulling away and getting you a little bit of separation in the first 5 races of the year.
And they're tough tracks out there. Now, if there is a city in the world that is all about the numbers, it's Las Vegas. From the casino floor to the racetrack, odds and stats are everywhere. So Adam Alexander and Shannon Spake are here to help us crunch the numbers.
When you dive into the numbers at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, you might assume that Jimmy Johnson and Matt Kenseth will be the 2 men holding the big stack of chips this weekend.
The 2 series champions have combined for 7 career wins in Sin City. However, 5 of those victories came between 2003 and 2007. Each driver has only 1 win in the last 9 races.
So who will call the bluffs of the 48 and the 20? How about the double deuce? Joey Logano is still looking for his first win in the desert, but he does have 3 straight top 10 finishes, making him one of the only 3 men with that distinction. The other 2, well, sit tight. We don't want to play our hand too early.
Logano has led a total of 166 laps in his career at Vegas, with all but one of those coming in the last 3 races. It also helps that Joey has been starting up front with 3 straight on the front row.
And there happens to be another deuce at Team Penske, and this one comes with 2 pocket aces. Brad Keselowski has finished 3rd, 1st, 7th, and 1st in his last 4 on the strip. That's an average of 3.0, a number that no one else even comes close to.
Throw in a pole and 98 laps led, and nobody is topping BK's numbers, unless they've got a pair of 8s. Dale Earnhardt Jr. sees Brad's 4 straight top 10s and raises him another 2. That's right, the last time Jr. finished worse than 10th in the desert was 2010, back when Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, and Carl Edwards were still racing. And Jimmy Johnson, he was only a 4-time champ.
So, drivers, it's time to show your cards. Let's see what you've got.
Yeah, Adam, here's what we got in terms of track facts for the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. This is the 20th Monster Energy Series race there, the second of 11 races this season on the 1.5-mile tracks. Now, the stage breakdown here, which the stage breakdown is going to be different at different tracks, 80, 80, and 107. And so, Casey, we see it's the second of 11 racetracks that are 1.5 miles in length, but these 1.5-mile tracks can certainly be different.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Vegas is its own animal for sure. And just the way that you go into turn 1, there's a big bump down the bottom. You see a lot of guys running the middle and towards the top. The banking carries all the way around the corner, so it's pretty forgiving center off. But then going into 3, you always have an issue with getting loose, typically. You know, and every time you try to soften your car up a little bit to get over that bump a little bit better, it messes up your entry into turn 3. So it's a tough balance for the drivers and the crew chiefs to figure out.
Yeah, as far as the crew chiefs are concerned, I mean, the one thing about Las Vegas that I found out is that the grip level itself is very different from what we've seen. And we know it's nowhere near like Atlanta. But when you go look at Texas or any other places that are 1.5 miles, each one of them has a little bit of difference right there. So you approach the race a little bit differently, how you set your car up, the aero balance you're looking for. And they do carry a lot of speed out there at that racetrack. So all these kind of factors kind of go into making it a very, very challenging racetrack.
Well, a couple things, too. Like Kurt alluded to, is at one point, Kurt Busch was saying that you practice single-car runs. And then when you start that race in the pack, the car changes a ton. You really got to tighten your car up for the pack. And then also, too, one thing that happens at Vegas is the temperature swing. You know, a cloud comes over, and you'll pick up a ton of grip. The cloud goes away, and it gets slick real fast.
Yeah, and there is a headache that goes with that. When the clouds are there, he loves that racetrack. And as soon as it gets hot and sunny, I start hearing about it.
Yeah, very temperature-sensitive race.
Working that track bar a lot when that happens.
Yeah, exactly. That's where he's got to figure that out, right? Or driver can do it.
I can do it a little bit.
You can do a little bit.
He can help himself.
Teamwork, right? And race fans, over the next hour, be sure to join the conversation and get involved in our Connect Live questions. We'll have multiple throughout the show. First up, which RCR driver wins first this season? Log on to foxsports.com/vote and let us know. Clint Boyer has been fast on the track so far in 2017, but does that mean he slows down at home? Of course not. Hop on Clint's brand new truck for a ride to work. And speeding on pit road in Atlanta had teams scratching their heads. Could that trend continue in Vegas? Coming up next, and Casey Mears will go to the next level. But next on the Hub, Alan Cavanna is at RCR to explore what went wrong in Atlanta and why they are optimistic going forward. Welcome back, everyone. NASCAR Race Hub is presented by Polaris.
Or just shut off. Reset it. Try to reset if you can. 10.3. It's crashing fast. Need a battery. Need a battery. Cycle the power for 3 seconds, please. I need a battery, so tell me where you want me to go. I think we're going to have to go to the garage right here. Screen is completely shut off. Go to the garage when you get there. Damn it. We try to jump you off, but I don't think we can do anything.
So 2 of the 3 Richard Childress Racing teams had a little power problem in Atlanta on Sunday. Ryan Newman and Austin Dillon both showed speed and were running up front when the issues hit. A finish neither were expecting. So let's head out to Welcome, North Carolina, to RCR, where Alan Cavanna has made his way to find the negative of what happened and the positive of the solutions.
John, Austin Dillon, Ryan Newman should have walked out of Atlanta with top 10s, but the same mechanical issue ended up costing both drivers good finishes at the end of the race. I talked to both of their crew chiefs this week. They told me they took a risk in terms of how they set up their car, and it ended up biting both teams, but they liked what they saw in terms of speed, and they expect it to be there in Las Vegas and beyond.
When Austin said the motor quit, I went through the checklist that we have, to reset the power, try different things, and I started running to the garage, and next thing you know, I hear stay out on the track, and one thing led to another, and Austin stayed out there. He was trying to switch stuff, and we all run to the garage to get a battery ready, and unfortunately he brought out the yellow, but it wasn't intentional by any means. It just part of trying to be competitive, and we were hoping that he would reset the power and it would take back off, but unfortunately the battery was dead and he couldn't recover to start the vehicle back up. So part of it, but no, there's no hidden agendas by no means. We had a bad day, and we weren't trying to make it worse for anybody else.
We found ourselves in a scenario that we hoped we wouldn't find ourselves in, and we had made some changes to the cars that were with the idea in mind of improving the performance of the race car, but not necessarily improving the ability to overcome a situation that we saw at Atlanta. So yeah, we have to look at the risk versus reward of the decisions we made to make those changes to the car, but I don't question the decisions that were made because they were made knowing the circumstance we were going to be putting ourselves in.
This company, this team, this 3-team needs a victory, and we have Vegas circled, and we're going there with high hopes. We've put a lot of work into this new car that we're taking, and hopefully it pays off.
Las Vegas was good to RCR last year. It put all 3 teams in the top 15, but after the speed they showed in Atlanta, the crew chiefs here are expecting more. John?
Alan, thank you very much. We find Jeff Hammond over at our Ford Performance Cutaway car. And Jeff, show us a little bit about what everybody's talking about here.
It kind of blew my mind when I heard about what went on up there, because let's take a quick look here. We're going to bring the car, kind of skin it back a little bit and show you first and foremost really where the alternator is located on this car to give you some idea at home exactly what we're talking about. Here is where the alternator is located, folks. What was going on, JR, is the fact that we've got a hose here in the front nose, so they had a way to get cool air to the alternator. During the course of the race, we know how much they were tearing the tires up, real fine rubber. That rubber stopped this hose up as well as the alternator.
So, Jeff, show us a little bit more about what the rubber does when it gets into the alternator. Okay,
I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. We'll go back over here to our Ford Performance car. We'll take the engine out, give you a better look at where the alternator is. And what was going on? That air was flowing up through the tube, and that fine rubber was actually getting in these little vents that you see here that lets the air flow through. Normally, it was getting stopped up with rubber. And when it overheated, well, it malfunctioned. That meant the battery didn't get any more charging. Eventually, they failed the car as far as electrical is concerned. They lost power.
Yeah, and Jeff, is there any concern about going into Vegas this weekend to have the same thing happen?
No, there's not, because they've addressed the problem. They understand what went on. They've already made efforts to go ahead and rectify that, not only for Las Vegas, but California. California's bad on tires also, so there's a possibility something like this happening. They've already addressed it. They feel real confident they're going to be good to go.
Jeff, that's very interesting. Come on over here. We're going to get the fans involved now.
All right, I like that.
And fans, we want to know from you. Give us your opinion. Which one of the Richard Childress Racing drivers will win first this season? They, of course, are all capable of getting that done. And you also have the option there of none. As you cast your votes, we're going to debate along with you. Casey, what do you think? Which one of those drivers breaks through first?
I mean, I'm going to have to go with Newman just because of his experience in the past and how well they ran at Atlanta. Obviously, Austin ran ran well also, and obviously, Paul Menard has a good shot. But I just think Newman, with his experience, has a really good shot at being that first guy to break a win.
But the thing is, sometimes you got to be a little hungrier than the other guy next to you. Yeah, I think that Paul Menard's got a good chance this weekend. But I really believe Austin Dillon has shown not only the determination but the speed. I mean, he ran so well at Daytona. He had a shot till he ran out of fuel there. They had the battery problem. He was faster, believe it or not, than eventual winner at Atlanta. And I just really feel like that this young man going into Las Vegas is one of the guys you got to watch and worry about.
Okay, so let us close the vote, see what the fans have to say. It's not by a big margin, but they say Austin Dillon is going to be the first driver that's going to break through. So they agreed.
It's okay.
Well, I guess they completely disagreed with both of you guys, what they did. But anyway, RCR, you cannot keep a good team down for a while. They're hungry, and they're going to find a way to get there.
I think that even they might have been surprised with their speed at Atlanta. They've done a good job in the offseason. They've really done their homework. I was surprised to see them run as well as they did. But at the end of the day, too, at the end of last year, that 3 car was running pretty darn fast at a lot of places they went to. So I guess at the end of the day, it's not a huge surprise.
No, it shouldn't be. Even though they haven't finished that well, they've been very competitive. And that was the one thing they were looking to do during the offseason was find speed at the racetrack. So when they got to Daytona, all of them ran really well, got caught up. I think Newman got caught up in a wreck. The 3 car was in position to win. You can see where Paul Menard, he come home 5th, but then they got to Atlanta. Yeah, they struggled a little bit, but it wasn't struggling because of being competitive. They just had some mechanical issues that brought them down.
The biggest thing is knowing that you have speed.
Exactly right.
From a driver's standpoint,
you can't beat speed.
If you have speed, you just got to clean up everything else, and you can get a win.
Yeah, eventually the luck will go your way. If you find yourself in contention, it's eventually going to happen. Got to take a quick break. We'll have much more as we prepare you for the Las Vegas weekend. Coming back, we'll continue to look at who the favorites might be. Welcome back to the Hub. Time now for NASCAR Goes West, presented by Toyota. Ready, set, go west. And so the journey begins. Some of the hardest working people in NASCAR are the crew members and hauler drivers. These Toyota mobile race shops are being loaded up with cars and tools and spare parts. They're preparing to go over 5,000 miles in the next 3 weeks. And that was NASCAR Goes West, presented by Toyota. Now let's hear from some of the drivers on the keys to Vegas.
The key to Vegas seems to be race day. We don't get out there in a big group of traffic, and the car and the track go really loose on Sunday. And so you really have to overcompensate on tightening up the car. And I've seen over the years, Keselowski likes tight race cars, Kenseth likes tight race cars, Jeff Gordon won there, and they all like the tighter race car. So you just have to overly compensate at Vegas for race day, because that's finally when we all get out there together and rubber in the track.
You know, I think Las Vegas has a lot of unique challenges. One of the biggest is that we practice in conditions that aren't like what we race. So it's hard to get a great read for your car in practice that you can feel confident in for the race. And the crew chiefs always seem to end up guessing on the setup. So it's been a track that's been really good to the Miller 2 crew. And it's hard to really pinpoint a reason why, but I think we've been really good at the end of the race. The track changes a lot through the race. Got to have really good adjustments. My crew chief, Paul Wolf, does a great job instead of, the dial to get things where it needs to be. And we've had some success there, and we're hungry for more. So hopefully we can get another win.
It's just a really fast 1.5 miles. So very similar to Atlanta, Texas, but the pavement doesn't seem to wear out the tires quite as bad. The bumps are there, but the abrasiveness is a little bit different. So the key is having your car be able to work the top and the bottom in turn 1 and 2. I think the bottom is the key to 3 and 4, but you really got to be able to move around, get through the bumps well in 1 and 2.
Las Vegas is something that we kind of look at with all other 1.5 miles. You know, Charlotte and Texas travels are pretty similar, so I feel like we've always had a decent setup for there, so hopefully we can go back and have continued success.
So there are a lot of difficult things about Vegas as we take it to the next level. One of the more difficult things, especially after coming out of Atlanta, guys, are those pit road speeding penalties. Show us exactly what pit road's like and why it's so difficult, Jeff.
Well, you can see right now everybody getting ready to come and ready for make a pit stop. But here's the big difference from last year to this year. In 2016, we're taking a look at this is what it used to be like as far as timing lines when it comes to Las Vegas. These red lines here indicate where the timing line is. These are the segments so that the teams themselves can know exactly what segment they may get caught speeding in. And a year ago, these guys could speed through these segments pretty easy. But now, look at what they've done to you this year. Every time you see one of these red lines, you now see where they've added a segment to it as well as basically a speed trap.
Tighten it way up. You know, there was a lot of leeway in the past where you might do a few things in between these lines to get an advantage. And, now with them tightening it up so much, last year, when you'd come down pit road, you'd be running right down pit road like this, looking for your sign, looking at your lights, looking at other cars in front of you, and you might go over what would be your limit and had a little bit of time to slow it back down or get under speed to kind of make that average better. Now with these segments, you're coming through here, you're looking, you look up away from your lights for a second and you look back down and you're over, you have no time to correct. And that's where a lot of these pit road speed penalties are coming from. There's a lot going on. And what a lot of people tend to forget is that we're doing this manually as a driver. I mean, you're working the pedal, watching the lights, trying to pay attention to everything that goes on.
Don't hit the guy in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go back to the shop and you do a meeting and everybody's on you about getting everything out of it.
Yeah, now show us exactly what you mean, Casey, on the dashboard with the lights, what you see.
Yeah, right here. Well, obviously, you know, in this area, through these small cracks and right through the A-post, you're looking through your pit speed sign. And then obviously right here is what your lights are. And these actually progress. You know, the green lights grow and then it slowly gets into reds. I always use the first 2 reds as my max. So you're constantly trying to make sure that you got full greens and bump those 2 reds. And if you glance just for a second or make the slightest mistake, you can be over in a heartbeat.
And the thing I think you need to understand, this tachometer is kind of like your inside the race car speedometer, so it gives you an idea also where you're trying to hit your mark as far as I'm going to put it on 2,500 or 3,000 RPM, which affects the way the lights work.
Absolutely, and I use that a lot coming to pit road. That was the big thing, right? Right when you're coming to pit road, boom, you look at that, and then you use your lights as you're down pit road.
Let's jump outside of the car, guys, and take a look at all that's going on at a pit road like Vegas. A lot of confusion.
Yeah, you can see right here. I mean, this is a lot of the congestion that Casey's talking about. And look how these cars are lined up. It's exactly what you're trying to say. You're coming down through there, and you're worried about running in the back of somebody.
Yeah, and if you had a rear view, or if you could see out the front of some of these cars, you're actually looking at like a 4x8 sheet of plywood. You cannot see through that. So there's a lot of visibility restrictions for sure.
And look right here. Here's a 31 car of Newman, and it looks like the 24 car of Casey Elliott, and they're coming to that timing line that everybody's worried about anyway. You don't want to be speeding, crossing over there, and he basically bumps him in the back end.
Absolutely. I mean, it was, you know, Elliott's first year in the Cup Series, one of the first races. He's making sure he's not going to speed on pit road. Ryan's trying to get everything out of it, and about gets in the back of him.
Look right here. They're actually almost not supposed to pass anybody going down pit road, and they're basically running side by side.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, so if you've ever wondered why a driver speeds on pit road, I think the fans have a pretty good idea now exactly what's going on.
Don't give them too many excuses.
Yeah, and how tough it really is. Well, now for the Monster Energy Cup Series this week, they'll have a display that drivers can see during practice. Now, we'll see how this all plays out on Sunday on Fox. The Monster Energy NASCAR Series goes west to Las Vegas. Will Brad Keselowski hit the jackpot again and not only go back-to-back this season, but repeat at Vegas from 1 year ago? Or might Kevin Harvick redeem himself after last week's tough loss? Find out as the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series from Las Vegas kicks off Sunday at 3 Eastern on Fox. If you think Clint Bowyer is off the charts at the racetrack, wait until you see his ride to work with Alan Cavana.
A dead sprint by Clint Bowyer. Obviously wants to have a conversation perhaps with Jeff Gordon.
I thought it was a cheap shot and a, you know, classless thing to do. You just get over it.
The popular Ride to Work portion of Race Hub is back, and no better way to kick it off than with driver Clint Bowyer. Yeah, he knows how to play, but his job behind the wheel and his life off the track have taken on a huge new meaning. Let's take a ride with Alan Cavana and Clint.
The first ride to work of 2017, I couldn't think of a more appropriate driver. A new team for you, Clint Bowyer, a new commute to work, and you've got a new truck. Tell us about this thing.
Well, first of all, the truck, man, you know, this 17 Ford F-250s, it's awesome. You know, living on this farm like this, having cattle and stuff like that. I mean, we've had a load of hay on it. You know, who doesn't like a diesel, a big, bad turbo diesel?
Not too bad being with Ford just yet, is it?
No, it's great. The culture is awesome. You know, the fit factor couldn't be better for me. I love going in, and it's just a lot of fun to go in there and see those guys digging and working hard to make sure that we look good.
Speaking of the race shop, you want to go to work?
Let's do it.
Let's do it, man. So how you feeling? Invigorated? I mean, this new drive.
I don't use the word invigorating ever, so I feel awesome. Let's use awesome.
All right.
Can we simplify?
I felt like last year wasn't the Clint Bowyer we all know. Not the fun having Clint Bowyer.
Obviously, last year, you know, if you had to reflect back on it, I mean, was it worth it? Yes. And I'd have done it over again. Did it suck? Yes. Yeah. But, hey, man, I mean, we've all had jobs we didn't necessarily like.
He is pretty disgusted right now, I can tell you that.
The hardest part about last year is knowing what's ahead and just that carrot dangling in front of you, and you just couldn't reach the damn thing, you know, and putting in your time. There's a lot of good things that happened last year. We brought in, you know, a new daughter to the world, and that was something that was ultra cool.
What's the best part about being a dad?
Interaction, watching him grow up. Holy cow, you know, at 2.5 years old now, it's just amazing. Starting to have a conversation with him, starting to try to pull one-overs on you to get what he wants, you know. You're like, son, nah, not even close, not gonna happen, you know, but he'll still try.
I'm getting married in less than 2 months. What do you think about that?
You're screwed.
What?
All the
Why do you
things
say
that, like your grandfather, all of his buddies, all them old codgers that always said, boy, enjoy it while you can. This ring gets on your finger, it's heavy as hell, and you work for them.
What would Laura say if she heard you saying that?
Just laugh and say, that's you damn right.
I heard the story. You got signed by RCR, or Richard, and he called you.
Well, first of all, I hung up on him.
Yeah, you hung up on Richard Childress.
That phone call as it happened, standing at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in a body shop. I mean, hell, let's face it, we were trying to figure out in the pool whose turn it was to buy beer that afternoon, right?
And then you get a phone call.
I get a phone call, and it's Richard Childress. I'm like, yeah, right. You know, looking around thinking somebody was putting me up to it.
Y'all get Boyer. Y'all get Boyer. Don't let him do that stupid. He's running down racetrack. I don't know where he's at. I mean, he's running down pit road.
A dead sprint by Clint Boyer. Obviously wants to have a conversation perhaps with Jeff Gordon.
Did you ever forgive him? What did it take to forgive another racer that did you wrong?
You don't ever forgive something like that because it was to wait to the end of the year and do it when there's so much prestige and money on the line and you're literally racing for a championship. I thought it was a cheap shot and a, you know, classless thing to do. You usually just go retaliate and...
I don't blame you.
As he comes down the trailer, he's getting Hey, come here.
It did suck, and it was wrong, and he said it was wrong. You just get over it. By the way,
yeah,
I've got a good hot rod.
I bet you do.
Yes.
God, you're excited about it.
Yeah, and confident about it. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the thing is knowing that you've got a car and teammates that go out and win these races and are capable of winning these races. At this point in my career, just seems like it's the best opportunity I've ever had to go out and compete for these wins.
You're in your prime, man.
Win that championship. I won that Xfinity championship, and that was gratifying and all, but I want to win the Daytona 500 before I quit, and I want to win a championship. This is the place right here that I'm going to be able to do it at.
Thanks for the ride.
Thanks, brother.
Good luck this year.
Good to see you.
Okay, so obviously it re-energizes you anytime you go to a new race team, Casey. But not only is Clint Boyer going to a new race team, he's sitting in the seat that was occupied by pretty much a legend before him.
Yeah, and I think that you can the pressure comes on how much you deliver it to yourself and inside the team. Obviously, what people think outside of the team as far as filling those shoes and what people think on the inside of the team is a different scenario. And I think Clint's pretty aware of where he is. He obviously wants to go out and do a good job for himself. After the year he had last year, you can see that he really wants to take advantage of this opportunity. And so far, he's doing that.
Yeah, a lot of people say, gosh, I don't want to be Clint Boyer having to fill in for Tony Stewart. But I think it's the best guy in the world that you could be replacing because Tony understands the ups and downs of racing. He understood what Clint was going through over there not being competitive for the last couple of years. And I think he's basically put his arm around Clint and said, look, dude, go have fun. That's what it's all about. Go have fun and let your natural abilities take over. And I think so far we've seen really good things come out of that 14 game.
Yeah, Tony Stewart would be a great boss to have. Let's get another Connect Live vote going here as we ask you, the fans, this question. What do you think about Clint Boyer, where he's going to finish this time around? Will it be 1st through 10th in points, 11th through 20th, 21st through 30th? Jeff, where do you think he's going to finish out this season?
He probably will wind up 1 through 10, but I'm going to be conservative. I'm saying 11 through 20. I think these guys have a legitimate shot of making the chase, and I believe he will do it not only by performing, but I think he'll win a race somewhere along the way.
It's so early in the season. It's just hard to tell yet. But, I mean, obviously they performed well at Daytona. They did a good job at Atlanta. Before he got in that incident in Atlanta, he would have had a really, really good finish. So, I mean, he has a shot at a top 10 in the championship. But I agree with you to be a little bit conservative, making that top 16, you know, and having a shot to be, you know, 12th to 16th, I think is pretty good. Good goal.
There's a couple of racetracks along the way, and particularly Sonoma Raceway, where I believe he has run well before and won a race. And last year, the guy drove the 14 2014 won at Sonoma. So why not?
Why not? Yeah.
Why not?
Well, nobody really thinks he's going to finish below 21st, but look at just barely. The fans say between 1st and 10th. That's pretty cool.
Like I say, it's right in there. It's right in there. They're going to be in the chase.
Clint's got the confidence level as well. Now, as the haulers arrive in Vegas, what a perfect time to talk to our buddy Todd Furman. Get ready to let it roll in the Sin City. Let's take a look at the last 6 drivers who hit the jackpot at Vegas in 2011. It was Carl Edwards and Tony Stewart. Matt Kenseth after that, Keselowski in 2014, then Kevin Harvick and Brad Keselowski again in 2016. A little bit of a trend going on right there, but that generally does not affect our odds. And to find out exactly what those are, it is time to let it ride. We check in with our expert, Todd Furman. And Todd, great to see you, man. How are you?
I'm doing very well, John. Still celebrating the fact we'll have a second Cup race on the calendar out here in the desert in 2018. We'll call ourselves the unofficial West Coast home of NASCAR moving forward.
Yeah, no, a lot of fans are very excited about that out there. But first of all, let's talk about this season. It's been an eventful young season so far. But have the championship odds changed at all?
Not a whole heck of a lot of movement, especially as it pertains to the favorites, though. One driver, Kyle Larson, at 20-1 to start the season. You have seen his number come down to 16-1 after 2 pretty impressive finishes to the opening 2 races.
So what about this weekend? Who's favored to win this weekend at Vegas?
Well, when we talk mile-and-a-half tracks, 13 out of the last 14 of those races have been won by 5 drivers. 3 of those 5 will find themselves as favorites. And we'll start with Kevin Harvick, listed at 9-2. Harvick has clearly been the dominant car so far this season. Won here back in 2015. Just hasn't been able to find victory lane yet this season. Brad Keselowski, he's priced at 13-2. Brad has been victorious in Vegas 2 of the last 3 years. And you look at the last 4 trips, all resulting in top 10 finishes. And, of course, the career leader in wins at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, Jimmy Johnson, with 4, is priced at 7-1. Jimmy has finished top 5 in 5 of his 12 trips out here to Sin City.
And even in Vegas, everybody likes a value. What are the value picks this weekend?
A little bit of value here with Matt Kenseth. You saw him battle back against adversity all throughout the race last week in Atlanta. He's at 10-1 along with Chase Elliott. And you look at Dale Jr., 12-1 alongside Martin Truex at the same price.
What about the long shots? Everybody likes an underdog.
We're in Vegas. You want to put up a little to make a lot. And we'll start with Kyle Larson at 16-1. Larson over his last 3 races has been passed with 10 laps or less to go. Eventually, he's got to break through and get that second win. And a guy looking for his first win, Austin Dillon, at 30-1, had a top 5 finish here in Las Vegas a season ago. No reason to think he can't be in the mix again this weekend.
And Todd, race fans love a head-to-head matchup. Who are the big boys that are paired against each other?
I'm going to take 2 drivers that appear to be trending in opposite directions, and it's the 2 of Brad Kay against the 18 of Kyle Busch. Brad, a slight favorite here. Kyle hasn't gotten the season off to the start that he probably would have liked. JGR also appears to be lacking a little bit of speed. I'll back the Penske driver, laying a very short price.
Yeah, and with that in mind, what about your manufacturer pick?
You read my mind, and I'm going to go right back to the Ford well here. I think you look at the speed that manufacturer has shown, and this has been one of the best tracks. They've represented 48% of the manufacturer wins here. That's the highest percentage for any manufacturer at the 23 active Cup tracks. I like Ford there at a very advantageous price.
Todd, before we let you go, we have to say, if you're not in the state of Nevada, this is for entertainment purposes only, but thank you for your insight. We appreciate it, and have a good time out there this weekend.
Always a pleasure.
All right, that is Todd Furman. Thank you. Race fans want to test your fantasy knowledge against us talented ones here on FS1. Be sure to join Fox Fantasy Auto Racing. Here's how it works. When we come back, we're going to wrap things up here as we get ready for Vegas. Do you remember the old match game? We'll explain about that in a moment. So let's take a look at what's coming up here. Friday's racing menu on FS1. Monster Energy Practice is kicking everything off. Then it's weekend edition for Race Hub. Xfinity Series practice after that. Then switch over to FS2, 5 o'clock Eastern Time, Beyond the Wheel. Xfinity Final Practice, another weekend edition of the Hub. And Monster Energy qualifying at 7:30 Eastern Time.
And John, it's time for our social garage. And Bristol Motor Speedway tweeted this picture out of you in what looks like a game show?
Okay, this was a lot of fun. We played a version of the old match game. We had fans up on the stage with some great drivers. Courtney Force and Ron Capps were there, and these fans were playing against each other for a chance. See, Courtney didn't really match with the fan on that one, so she was a little embarrassed at the end, but it was a good response, I thought. And, then at the end of the thing, each of the fan contestants, the least thing you could win was tickets to all the race events at Bristol.
Wow.
The best thing you could win was tickets to everything at Bristol. So they're trying as hard as they can up there in Thunder Valley to make that fan-friendly. But we're going to Vegas this weekend, guys.
Yeah, and the thing is, guys, I mean, I heard that NASCAR is going to do something for the first time, I think, ever. They're going to have an opportunity for the guys in this after the qualifying in their practice sessions to practice their pit road speed so they don't get speeding penalties.
That's going to be huge because we all ride around behind the pace car, and depending on where you're at, you can get varying speeds, right? So to be able to really double-check what you have prior to going in the race is huge. We all rely on the engineers to calculate that out now, but if somebody forgets to carry the one, we're at the back end of the deal.
You're busted.
So being able to verify that's going to be huge.
Yeah,
and it should go a long way.
It should, and they're going to do it at the back of the NASCAR hauler after, I think, the second practice as well as the final practice. So shame on you if you don't get it right.
So now there's no more excuses for the driver. Yeah. Not like they were making excuses before, but that was kind of an odd thing, Casey, to have all those speeding penalties. And, of course, the one speeding penalty that was so costly to the dominant car and driver at Atlanta, Kevin Harvick.
Yeah, and it's those shorter segments, like I said earlier in the show, it just leaves no room for error, and you can't correct yourself is the biggest thing. So, I think knowing what your pit road speed is going to be helpful, but it's still going to be a small segment in the race, and you still got to monitor what's going on there.
Speaking of errors, make sure you never take a hit if you got 16.
Yeah. Don't hit on 16.
Don't hit on
okay.
16.
So that's Jeff Hammond's gambling advice, and we want to give you some advice. Next week, be sure to catch Race Hub Monday through Wednesday. It's going to be at a special time, 7 o'clock. So make sure you set your DVRs, and we are now ready to go for a little hoop action. Want to thank everybody for coming along for the ride on this edition of Race Hub. For Casey Mears, Jeff Hammond, I'm John Roberts. Get ready for Vegas. We got you covered all weekend long.